Welcome back. Our next winter favourite is a beautiful beef Burgundy. It's a really simple braise, but it's quite rich. When I talk about braise, I'm talking about a method of cookery. So it's sort of halfway between boiling and halfway between frying. So you're just using the heat of the bottom, but also a little bit of liquid just to break down those tougher cuts of meat. Beef Burgundy comes from France, and it comes from a region that's known for its red wine, and so that's why it's such a major part of this dish. Apart from the red wine adding the flavour, the acidity of it also helps break down the meat as well, so that's why we can get such a beautiful tender braise at the end. When you choose your meat, it's really important to get the right cut of beef, because you don't want to get something that's going to go dry, like an eye fillet or a porterhouse, because they don't have enough fat in them. You want to get something like a rump or topside or any of the other secondary cuts, because they come up beautifully when you braise them. To start things off, we just need to start dicing and then sauteing off our onions and garlic. So just nice and rough. With all the things you cut up for this, it's just really nice and rustic and quick, because at the end of the day, it's just like a really simple braise. So you don't need to be doing like perfect little dices for it. So just roughly pop your onions in. Now for our garlic, just slicing it again. Just like with the risotto, you don't want the garlic to get that sort of harsh taste to it. An easy way to tell the difference is by tasting the sliced garlic, and then you'll definitely recognise the flavour I'm talking about the next time you go to use tinned garlic, because that's exactly what you're trying to avoid. So just get that in there. We'll put a little knob of butter in there now as well, just to help that start sauteing off. I'm on a medium heat here, and that should probably take around 2 minutes. Next, we're going to add our bacon. So once again, just dicing it up nice and rough, but we want our bacon to cook out and crisp up in the pan with the onions and garlic, and just start releasing all of that beautiful smoky flavour. So that goes in. You can already smell the onions and things starting to release. And you just want to keep doing this until it's clear. You don't want to get colour on it, because that sort of changes the flavour again. You just want to let it just cook out nice and slowly, making sure it doesn't burn. Next to this, we're going to add our beef. So dice it again. When you cook your beef out, it's going to shrink a little bit, so you just want to do nice big chunks. So like I said before, when you've got your bit of beef, have a look at it. You want to look for things like this sinewed and stuff, because this is what keeps it moist when you braise it. If you were just doing this on the barbecue, it wouldn't be appropriate, because it won't break down. Because we're going to cook this for quite a long time, then it really breaks it down and it becomes full of flavour. So just like with everything else, just keep rough dicing that up, straight in the pan. Make sure you keep giving it a stir, just because we want to get a nice even colouring over it. You can see there that the meat's starting to get nice colour on it, and that's good. You don't necessarily need a lot of heat to colour your meat off. It will just colour naturally because of the sugars in it. So that's why you can see that the onions and the garlic, they're not burning, but your meat's still getting colour. Now that that's all happening there, we can probably add our parsley next, I think. Just chop that up roughly again, same with everything. That's why I really enjoy cooking this dish, because you can just get it all in there nice and quick, nice and rough. And this is the sort of dish that once you know how to make it, you can just make it really quickly, go sit down for an hour or so while it cooks, come back and it's done. It's nice and easy. So now that that's happening, I'm going to chop up our veg. So just our carrot and our parsnip. I choose these vegetables for it because they hold up in it. Some vegetables like zucchini can go quite bitter when you cook them for a long time. So that's why you've got to choose vegetables that are appropriate. So any vegetables you would use in a soup generally are pretty safe for a braise as well. So nice and rough with them. You want to make your vegetables a little bit bigger than your beef when you're dicing them, because they will cook a little bit quicker than the beef, and that means that they won't break down like I said before. Not everyone adds vegetables to their beef Burgundy, but I really like it because I find that the carrots and the parsnips and that, they soak up the sauce. So when you eat them, full of flavour. Now that we've got really nice colour on everything and our veg is starting to get a bit of colour on them as well, we can add our tomato paste. When you're using tomato paste for most things, it's really important to cook it out. Not only does this give you a darker colour, but it also makes the flavour quite a bit nicer. It takes away that sort of the sweetness and the harshness of it straight up, and it just gives it that nice deep tomato flavour. Because of using a non-stick pan, it won't stick to the bottom. If you're using other pans at home, it generally will catch on the bottom, but that's actually not a bad thing because then we can get it off with our red wine. And letting this tomato paste cook out. It'll generally take about probably a minute or 2 minutes for it to cook out, so don't rush. And it's quite an important step as well because otherwise you can really taste the tomato through it. It starts to overpower it a little bit, but this sort of helps it sort of make its way to the background. You can really smell all the flavours coming out of this now, and that means it's ready for our red wine. If I'm making this just for me to eat, then I'll just add red wine. But if other people are going to be eating it as well, then it's okay to add a little bit of water because it's probably a little bit too rich for most people. So when you add your red wine, I think I said 1 cup, but I reckon I've probably added 2 cups there. And to that I'll add 3/4 cup of water. And just give this a quick stir, just to make sure everything's mixed in nicely together. So letting that all go around, it smells absolutely fantastic. I nearly forgot though, making sure now you add your salt and definitely plenty of pepper as well. Stir that through, and now we can just leave this to tick away for around 45 minutes to an hour. Perhaps finish off the rest of the bottle of wine, and when we get back it should look a little something like this. I've just served that with some mashed potato there because I like getting the sauce all through it. This is definitely one of my winter favourites, but seeing them at the Wilson's house, I'm going to cook theirs next, sticky date pudding.